Hi, my name is Brittany Knudsen. I'm from Laurel, Nebraska, and I'm currently a family and consumer science teacher here in Lincoln. Why I chose to go on a study abroad tour with CYAF, I chose to go because one of my friends who went to a different college, she had spent a whole semester in Uganda. And when she'd gotten back, she told me all about it and how awesome it was. It kind of made me more interested in learning about other cultures and different places. And so I kind of started thinking that I wanted to go somewhere. Luckily, CYAF had a study abroad tour for 2 weeks. And this tour was led by a professor that I'd had in the past that I really enjoyed having. So I decided to go with them to Brazil. There's lots of things that we had to do leading up to the trip. We had meetings with the group going to Brazil probably 3 or 4 times before we left, and they were a couple hours each, and we talked specifically about what we were going to be doing on the trip, what we needed to do to prepare, and what we needed to bring with us. And there was a seminar that was held in our college that was, I think, a 5 or 6 week seminar that if you came every week, they discussed the essentials of out-of-country travel, talked about kind of cultural competency and all that kind of stuff. And because I had gone for all 6 weeks, they gave me a $1,500 scholarship, which was excellent. When the date came that we were finally going to fly out, we had about a 12-hour flight to Brazil. And it was the longest flight I had ever taken, and I didn't know anybody else on this trip. I had just gone kind of by myself. I didn't know anybody, but as we got on the plane, I soon realized that I needed people. So we quickly became friends. There's about 20 of us, and by the time we got there, we were ready to go, and I felt good, especially with the 2 professors I went with. They both were fluent in Portuguese, which is what people in Brazil speak, and so they could easily communicate with the Portuguese people. One of the first things I remember, we went and walked through the slums of the city we were in, which was very intense. I have never seen that level of poverty before. We also visited some schools and also a couple different churches to see those different aspects because religion is very important to Brazilians. And then we did a homestay with different families and got to meet them and just see how everyday family life was for them. And so going that level of emotional intensity was a lot for many of us. And so we would debrief, talk about how this impacts our professional lives, how this impacts, ourselves personally. Every day we were supposed to journal. That was kind of part of our grade, and kind of write about what we learned that day, what we experienced, all of that kind of stuff, because we would use that journal then for our final project. Some fun things we did. We did a pirate ship tour of different islands off the coast of Brazil. We also did some hiking at one of the towns we stayed in and found just the most beautiful beach ever. It was literally out of like a storybook. It was so beautiful. We went to a Brazilian bar one night and watched the soccer game. And then we went to a churrascaria, which is a Brazilian steakhouse. They had entertainment, they had huge meat chunks on skewers where they'd cut it off for you, and it was literally the most delicious food I've ever eaten. After Brazil, we got home, we debriefed a little bit in the airport, but then our professors gave us a project, a final project that we had to do. I used my journal, I used the pictures that I had gotten from Brazil, and I chose to make a scrapbook so then I could keep it and look at it in the future. About a month after the trip, we had a big party celebration, and everybody shared their projects with the class. Everybody learned something about themselves, about another culture, about just anything, and it was really cool to see how different people took away different things from the trip. I think back to my Brazil trip all the time. I think back to those people who are so awesome in Brazil and how much I wanted to learn their language, how much I wanted to be immersed in their culture. I want to do that with my students too, because my students are so diverse and they all have different backgrounds, and I want to get to know them. And so I try to bring in some of that multicultural learning into my classroom and get them to think about other cultures. I always advocate to students to go out there and not be afraid to go study abroad. I always say that was the best decision of my life and that they need to get out there and see what the world has for them.